Have you ever bought a shiny new book, promising yourself you would read it, only for it to gather dust on your shelf? Or this one's a classic, getting super pumped about fitness, signing up for a fancy gym membership, and then never actually setting foot in the gym. That little voice inside whispering, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow seems to never really come around. Yep, that's the knowing doing gap, laughing in the background. It's funny, frustrating, and it's so relatable. We have all been there, caught in this space between knowing what's good for us and actually rolling up our sleeves to do it. You feel like there's this invisible wall stopping you from doing what you know you should. Hello, amazing listeners. I hope you're all settled in and ready for another exciting conversation. So tell me, have you ever sat there knowing full well what you should be doing? Maybe it's that workout, finishing that report, or even just tidying up your space. Yet you just can't seem to push yourself to do it. Yep, hands up. I have definitely been there more times than I would like to admit. It was such a commonplace for me that I had no idea that I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to my results. From a tiny task such as taking the garbage out to bigger result producing activities such as creating consistent content. It's like there's this invisible wall, right? We've all read the books, watched the videos, and maybe even shouted some self motivating affirmations into the mirror. And yet, the journey from knowing to doing sometimes feels like trying to leap across the Grand Canyon. This, my friends, is what we call the infamous knowing doing gap. It's that tricky, slippery space between things we are absolutely certain about and the actions we take or don't take. Majority of us suffer from this gap and don't even know it because we unconsciously become consumed by our thoughts, and those thoughts are a reflection of the paradigm we hold in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious conditioning is a product of our environment and past experiences. This is where our low self esteem issues are present, which kills the drive to do what we know we should be doing consciously. So, if you have ever wondered, why do I keep doing this? Why can't I just get moving when I know what's needed? Then you're in the right place. Today, we'll dig deep into this gap, understand its source, and explore ways to bridge it. So grab your favorite drink, get into your favorite chair, and let's embark on this journey together. By the time we're done, I hope we'll all be a step closer to turning our knowing into doing. So, this gap sounds a bit like a mysterious place in a fantasy novel, but trust me, it's way more real and closer to home than you might think. So, what's this gap? What's this gap all about? Imagine you're at your friend's place and you spot a jar of the most delicious looking cookies sitting pretty on the high shelf. Your mouth waters, your tummy rumbles, and you think, man, I would love to have one of those. But instead of getting up and reaching for that delicious treat, you just sit there staring and daydreaming about how it might taste. Bizarre, right? That's the knowing doing gap for you. It's knowing you want that cookie, but not reaching out to grab one. Now, you might be thinking, that's just cookies. I would definitely reach for them. But let's bring it down to even more relatable scenarios. Have you ever bought a shiny new book, promising yourself you would read it, only for it to gather dust on your shelf? Or, oh boy, this one's a classic. Getting super pumped about fitness, signing up for a fancy gym membership, and then never actually setting foot in the gym. That little voice inside whispering, I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow seems to never really come around. Yep, that's the knowing doing gap, laughing in the background. It's funny, frustrating, and it's so relatable. We have all been there, caught in this space between knowing what's good for us and actually rolling up our sleeves to do it. You feel like there's this invisible wall stopping you from doing what you know you should. And this invisible wall is often built by our own minds. Crazy, right? Take this thing called analysis paralysis. Sounds fancy, but basically it's when you overthink so much that you don't do anything at all. Now, picture this with me. You are in a candy store or a tech store, if that's your thing, and there are so many options that you just stand there and, yep, you guessed it, leave without buying anything. That's your mind in a tug of war, trying to make the perfect choice. And in the end, no candy or tech for you. It's a bummer. And then there's the dark shadow of the big F, failure. We have all felt it, that sneaky fear that whispers, what if I mess up? What if it all is all for nothing? And before you know it, that fear has you stuck in your tracks, not moving forward, even when you know you should. Fear comes from not knowing. The unknown causes us to be fearful. How do we replace fear? With faith? Faith comes from studying oneself, comes from within. The more we study ourselves, the more faith we gain because we have gifts that would make the animal kingdom jealous of us if they knew. Now let's chat about our snug little comfort zone. I get it. It's comfy there. It's like that favorite spot on your couch or that old worn out tea that feels like a hug. Why venture out when you're so darn cozy? But here's the catch: stay wrapped up too long, and you might just miss out on the incredible world outside, which can be experienced via your actions. Actions. Sure, taking that first step outside can feel like stepping out on a cold morning, but sometimes that fresh air is exactly what you need. Our current comfort zones are in alignment with the image we have of ourselves within, how we see ourselves within. We may think of something to do which seems exciting in our conscious mind. We have never done it before. We know what it can do for our future. But as soon as we emotionalize that idea, we get really enthusiastic about it. And then the fear triggers based on past experiences or conditioning. We run back to that comfort zone, which feels incredibly comfortable, and say, I knew that wasn't a good idea. This is how we get in our own way. However, great news is becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable is achievable once we know the working of the mind. Remember, You are super. So there we have it. Our minds, while brilliant, can sometimes be our very own tricksters. But don't fret. Recognizing these hurdles is the first step in jumping over them. And jump, we will. You ever think about those moments when you just might have missed out on something amazing? Picture this with me. You're walking through an old fashioned little market in a town you have never been to before. There's this stall with a sign claiming they sell the world's best chocolate. You pause, think you think about trying it, but then decide, maybe next time. But what if that really was the world's best chocolate and you missed out on tasting it because you weren't open to trying something new? That is a mini tragedy. The more we venture out of our comfort zone, the more we grow. In this example, our fat would grow, but then there's that feeling of being stuck. Like you are a revving, you're a car revving its engine, but not going anywhere. You've got the energy, the drive, and the desire, but something's keeping you in place. That, my friends, is what we call stagnation. It's when the gap between knowing and doing becomes like quicksand, pulling us down and preventing us from moving forward. It's like having a map to a treasure, but never setting out on the journey. The potential is there, but you're not tapping into it. It's coming down to our belief system. Do we actually believe deep down that we can get that treasure? Most entrepreneurs that get into business have complete belief on the conscious mind level. However, the doing comes from our subconscious mind. This is why so many of us in business are feeling stuck. We keep going from one strategy to another, hoping for better results, living in the realm of FOMO, fear of missing out. Keep learning, but lack the doing. Once you make that belief alignment between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, everything changes because our belief system shifts. And let's touch on the big R, regret. It's heavy. It's that uneasiness in your heart when you look back and think, if only I had taken that chance, or why didn't I go for it when I had that chance? It's like looking at old photos and realizing you missed the chance to be in them. The emotional price tag of regret can be steep, often leaving us with a bag full of what ifs and if onlys. We regret, but continue to allow the gap to be part of our lives. It's ongoing. However, I'm hoping with this episode, it will bring more awareness to this major success blocker. So there you have it. The gap between knowing and doing can have real costs, missed chocolates or opportunities, feeling stuck, and a heart heavy with regret. But knowing this, my friends, is the first step to actually bridging that gap. So, ready to take that leap? Book a call with me and let's chat. I love seeing these major shifts in people. So, my fellow explorers of life's biggest questions, we have chatted about the void of the knowing doing gap. But guess what? It's not all rain, clouds, and mist chocolates. Let's switch gears and chat about the bright side, the steps you can take to bridge this gap. Firstly, let's talk baby steps. If the journey seems long, break it down. Instead of focusing on running a marathon, maybe start with a brisk walk around the block. The key is to start somewhere and then keep going. It's momentum. Even if it's just a trickle at first, can lead to a flowing stream of progress. Speaking of progress, you know what can supercharge it? Accountability. Think about those times you promised to wake up early for a workout. Now, remember when you told your friend about it and they decided to join in. Boom. Suddenly, hitting the snooze button becomes a whole lot harder. That's the magic of the buddy system. It's like having a co pilot on your journey, someone who's got your back, nudging you forward. Now, let's jazz things up. Every time you take a step, no matter how tiny, give yourself a round of applause. Celebrate those wins. Whether it's choosing a salad over fries or finally starting that project you have been putting off, even that starting part, celebrate it. Every little victory deserves its moment. It's like giving yourself a gold star. Why? Because it feels great and it fuels you to keep going. It has the emotions that are needed to uncover your true potential. This type of emotion adds fuel to progress. Our subconscious mind is an emotional mind. Look for all the good that you do. Invest your energy in your qualities and expand them. Last but not least, let's talk about continuous learning. Remember that gap we spoke about? One way to bridge it is to make sure we shift our paradigm to do more of what we have learned in the past and what we are currently learning. Everyone's focus is on learning more, gaining more knowledge, learning more skills, which are all great, but the actual results come from our subconscious mind. It's responsible for the doing. To shift our paradigm, we need to do illogical things. We need to impress new beliefs in our subconscious mind. So we start doing more of what we already know how to do to produce the desired results. In my experience, it has been a complete game changer. So, did today's conversation spark some thoughts? Maybe a memory of that one time you faced your own gap and leaped right over it. I would absolutely love to hear about it. Shoot us a message, share your story, and let's create a ripple of inspiration. By sharing, we don't just heal ourselves, but we also might be the lighthouse for someone else. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I leave you with this. Each tiny action you take, each moment you decide to stride forward, you're not just closing a gap, you're building bridges. Till we meet again, keep taking those steps, keep building, and remember, we're all in this journey together, believe it or not, one leap at a time. So remember to subscribe, turn the notifications on if you're watching this, and share this episode with loved ones because you are super.